What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Sunday, May 18th, 2025, and I have some major breaking news to share with you guys. Right now it is 16:19 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from Russia and Ukraine and also from here in the US. So Russia is going to be launching an Icbm tonight. They're going to be testing their RS-24 YARS, and we're also hearing that the U.S. is scheduled to test a Minuteman III Icbm on May 29th, so in just 2 days. So very interesting that Russia is testing this RS-24 YARS right before the Trump-Putin phone call tomorrow morning. So clearly this is being used as a signal to Trump, a show of force to Trump before the call. And then the U.S. testing a Minuteman just 2 days after Russia's testing their RS-24 YARS. So the thing to look out for with the Minuteman test is to see how many re-entry vehicles they test with the Minuteman. If they just test one re-entry vehicle, it means it's just a standard test. But if they test 3 re-entry vehicles, it's a sign that the U.S. is rearming the Minuteman missiles with their full capacity of 3 warheads per missile, because of the START II treaty that expired and was not renewed by the U.S. and Russia, which limited the number of warheads we could put on each one of our 400 deployed Minuteman missiles to just 1 warhead per missile. But if there's 3 re-entry vehicles tested, it means the U.S. is rearming the Minutemans. But clearly we have a measuring contest between Putin and Trump, with Russia testing a missile and then Trump testing a missile. So it's a contest of whose missile is bigger, okay? And what's also concerning is we're hearing that there's going to be a massive attack on Ukraine tonight. Interestingly, the RS-24 YARS test is going to be tonight, so we're going to be monitoring it live in my 24/7 live stream. I will be live later on tonight monitoring the situation, and you can go into the 24/7 live stream and get continuing news updates from my excellent moderators, the best moderators on YouTube. So very, very serious times we're living in, guys, but the New York Times is reporting, citing American and Ukrainian sources, that Russia may launch a ballistic missile attack, a large ballistic missile attack on Ukraine tonight. Okay, now what's interesting is we have these Russian doomsday planes airborne in the eastern Black Sea. And one of these is a communications relay plane, and the other one is Putin's doomsday plane, and they were flying with their trackers off for a while. And interestingly, last night we had this U.S. Air Force Forte 10 RQ-4 Global Hawk patrolling the western Black Sea, looking at Crimea, and then looking to the eastern Black Sea. So something is definitely brewing over here for there to be Russian doomsday planes and Forte 10 up in the air here in the Black Sea for such a long period of time. And some interesting things about the Russian missile test tonight, or potentially missile strike, it could actually be a missile strike, is that they're going to be launching it from an unusual location, not from the typical place that they launch these RS-24 YARS from. They typically launch them from the Plesetsk Cosmodrome. Well, they're actually going to be launching them from a site further away from Europe and Ukraine in Siberia, which could potentially be a signal to the Asia region that Russia has the ability to strike Asia as well, but could also be some kind of a combat test to see how they can operate these missiles in unfamiliar locations. But I'm going to read to you some more technical details about this test in just a few minutes shortly here. And like I said, Trump and Putin will be speaking at 10 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. And Trump said yesterday that nothing will happen with Ukraine until he meets with Putin. So Trump wants to meet Putin. But we're hearing now that Putin is planning a massive summer offensive against Ukraine, and that Russia may not want to continue negotiations until after the summer offensive. Okay, so Russia has been stalling this whole time and rebuilding their military, and then they're going to make a second attack on Ukraine, and they're going to try to take more land, and then they're going to go back to the negotiating table. And before I continue with the breaking news, I wanted to mention the sponsor for this update, which is NYPrepper Supply. Guys, NYPrepper Supply has brought back their $200 discount on their 3-month emergency food supply. And to get the discount, you got to go to preparewithnyprepper.com, and the link is in the description below this video. That's preparewithnyprepper.com to get $200 off the NYPrepper Supply 3-month emergency food supply. This is freeze-dried food, so it has a 25-year shelf life, and it's all packed within 6 rugged, watertight buckets, so it doesn't take up a lot of space. You can easily fit this in a small closet in a studio apartment, and the food has all of your essential vitamins and minerals and up to 2,000 calories per day. So use the link preparewithnyprepper.com to get the NYPrepper Supply 3-month emergency food supply, 25-year shelf life for just $500. That's $200 off their normal price. So use the link in the description below this video. And a U.S. official said that Putin will try to take all the land he can during this summer offensive, even to the outskirts of the capital, Kiev. And Dmitry Medvedev, the former Russian president and Putin's best friend, said that failed negotiations could lead to a more violent war. And yesterday, Ukraine shot down 273 drones that Russia launched from 15 regions. Okay, so does this sound like a country that's interested in a peace deal, a ceasefire deal? They launched nearly 300 drones from 15 locations in Russia at Ukraine, okay? And Marco Rubio, the U.S. Secretary of State, confirmed that Lavrov, his Russian counterpart, told him that Russia will send the U.S. its list of demands for there to be a ceasefire this week. Rubio responded and said if the demands are not realistic, then the U.S. will pass a massive new sanctions package, okay? And we're hearing from various sources, U.S. officials to Bloomberg, reporting on some of the demands. They already leaked out, okay? So here are what the demands are going to be. Ukraine must be neutral. So basically they have to abandon any hopes of joining NATO or any alliance, any military bloc. Okay, they have to adopt a fully neutral status. Russia wants a complete ban on the deployment of foreign troops and weapons into Ukraine. And Russia wants Ukraine to not pursue any reparations, okay, from Russia. So reparations are if you get invaded and then you ask the country that invaded you for money to rebuild your country. Okay, so Russia basically wants that in writing, that Ukraine will not demand reparations. Recognition of the loss of Crimea and 4 other regions of Ukraine. So Crimea and all of the occupied territories that Russia's holding now and that they annexed has to be recognized by Ukraine as Russian territory. And also they want international recognition of those regions and withdrawal of Ukrainian troops from all of the territories that Russia has under occupation and their transfer to Russian control. Only if these conditions are met will Putin consider the option of a ceasefire. So these are basically maximalist demands, okay? So absolutely insane. And I want to read to you a little bit more about this RS-24 Yars test or potentially strike tonight. On May 18th, 2025, Ukraine's main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense announced that Russia is preparing to conduct a training and combat launch of an RS-24 Yars intercontinental ballistic missile. Interesting wording, a training and combat launch, so potentially they're going to strike Ukraine with it, from a mobile ground-based complex near the settlement of Svobodny in Russia's Sverdlovsk Oblast. According to the Russian Ministry of Defense, the Yars is designed to penetrate any existing or future missile defense system, a claim that highlights its role in maintaining Russia's nuclear deterrence posture. The decision to conduct the launch from Svobodny, a relatively obscure location deep within Russian territory, deviates from established practice. The Plesetsk Cosmodrome, located roughly 1,300 kilometers from Ukraine and 450 kilometers from Finland, has been the primary site for Yars test launches since the missile's development. Historical records confirm that the first 3 test firings of the RS-24 Yars occurred at Plesetsk in May and December of 2007, followed by November 2008, establishing it as the standard proving ground. In 2024, Russia conducted a Yars launch from Plesetsk to the Kura test range in Kamchatka as part of strategic nuclear exercises, a move closely monitored by Western intelligence. Svobodny's selection, situated in Sverdlovsk Oblast, suggests a deliberate shift. The site's distance from NATO's surveillance assets in Europe may reduce the risk of immediate escalation, while its proximity to Russia's Asian borders could signal a broader strategic message, potentially aimed at regional powers like China or Japan. Ukrainian intelligence reported that the launch would be executed by the 433rd Regiment of the 42nd Division, part of the 31st Strategic Missile Forces, indicating a high level of operational readiness in a non-traditional theater. The operational history of the Yars provides further insight into its significance. Since its introduction, the missile has been a centerpiece of Russia's strategic rocket forces, with approximately 150 launchers deployed across multiple divisions as of 2024. Its ability to operate in harsh environments, including extreme cold, owes to its solid fuel design, which eliminates the needs for on-site fueling and reduces launch preparation time to minutes. The Yars has been tested extensively with successful launches from Plesetsk, demonstrating its accuracy and reliability. A notable exercise in October 2024 involved a Yars launcher to the Kura range, part of a broader strategic deterrence drill that included air-launched cruise missiles from Tu-95 bombers. As reported by the Russian Ministry of Defense, the Svobodny launch, however, introduces a new variable. By conducting the test from a less familiar site, Russia may be evaluating its ability to deploy mobile ICBMs in unconventional regions, a tactic aligned with its doctrine of maskirovka, or deception, which prioritizes concealing assets from satellite and radar detection. The choice of Svobodny also raises logistical questions. Unlike Plesetsk, which is equipped with a dedicated launch infrastructure, Svobodny's mobile launch complex requires significant coordination to transport, assemble, and secure the Yars system. Interesting. The 433rd Regiment's involvement suggests that Russia is testing not only the missile but also the operational tempo of its strategic missile forces in a remote setting. The distance from Ukraine, 1,600 kilometers, places the launch outside the immediate theater of conflict, potentially reducing the risk of miscalculation by NATO or Ukraine. However, the test's proximity to the Trump-Putin call invites speculation about its diplomatic intent. From a technical perspective, the RS-24 Yars is engineered for survivability. Its guidance system, believed to combine inertial navigation with satellite-based corrections, ensures high accuracy with a circular error probability of less than 150 meters. So this is a very accurate system, and it's road mobile. The missile's MIRV capability allows it to strike multiple targets simultaneously, while it uses decoys and electronic countermeasures designed to overwhelm radar-based defenses like the US AN/TPY-2 or NATO's active layered theater ballistic missile defense. These measures make the Yars a credible threat to strategic targets, though its effectiveness depends on Russia's ability to maintain and deploy the system under combat conditions. Okay, so absolutely insane, guys. They're going to be launching this thing tonight. It's possible they could even strike Ukraine with it tonight. They could hit Kiev and make a big statement to Trump, okay, basically giving Trump the finger and telling Trump, listen, we'll strike Ukraine whenever we want, however we want, you know. And I want to remind you guys that Putin fired one of his top generals recently, Oleg Salyukov, the commander-in-chief of Russia's ground forces. And Russia redeployed several Tu-160 nuclear bombers out of Ukrainian drone range from Engels 2 Air Base to Balaya Air Base in Irkutsk in Siberia. So interesting. They could be doing that either because they may start launching strikes on Ukraine all the way from Irkutsk with these nuclear bombers, or they could be doing it to move the planes out of drone range so Ukraine doesn't strike them with drones, because these are Russia's premier nuclear bomber, okay, the Tu-160, so they don't want them to get hit by Ukrainian drones, so they're moving them all the way to Siberia now. And the presidential election from Romania is wrapping up. 93% of the ballots have been counted, and the pro-Russian candidate George Simon is losing. He's down to 46% of the votes, and the leader, Dan is his name, is leading with 54% of the votes. So it looks like the pro-Russian candidate is not going to win the election for president. And we have some major breaking news coming in from Israel. The Houthis launched 2 ballistic missiles at Israel yesterday evening. Both were shot down by Israeli air defense. And the Houthi spokesman said after the missile strikes that attacks on Israel will escalate. Okay, so the Houthis are going to escalate their strikes on Israel, but they launched 2 more missiles at Israel yesterday evening. Okay, so Israel's probably really pissed off at Trump now because he made that ceasefire deal with the Houthis. And under that ceasefire deal, the Houthis are not going to attack American bases or any American interests, but they can still attack Israel. Okay, so Israel feels like the Trump administration basically sort of stabbed them in the back a little bit. Okay. And on Friday, we had a large number of nuclear codes transmitted by U.S. nuclear forces. There were 51 emergency action messages transmitted on Friday, which is a lot. And all last week, we had on average like 30 to 40 emergency action messages every single day for some reason. And I want to remind you guys that there was that serious incident in the Gulf of Finland where the Estonian military tried to seize a Russian oil tanker, and the Russians deployed a Sukhoi fighter jet, and the Sukhoi fighter jet flew into Estonian airspace, okay, during that encounter. So that could have been a World War III situation right there. And Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah Khamenei, said that Trump lied when he claimed he sought peace, calling his recent remarks during a regional visit an embarrassment to the U.S. He said America must leave the region, and it will. Wow. Wow, absolutely insane. Basically giving Trump the finger. And the U.S. will present a nuclear deal to Iran this week, according to a U.S. source. And the Iranian president said yesterday, "We will not back down from our rights due to threats, nor will we abandon our achievements in various fields." Okay, so Iran does not want to give up their nukes. They don't want to give up their nuclear material. They don't want to stop building nuclear material. And of course, they want to have a nuclear arsenal. And Israeli media is reporting that the vice president of the U.S. will visit Israel next week. And what's interesting is that Trump was just in the Middle East and didn't stop in Israel. And now apparently Vance is going to Israel. So this could mean that Trump and Netanyahu are not on good terms, and the U.S. is sending Vance to Israel because the Israelis don't really like Trump and they don't want to meet him. So they send Vance instead. Very interesting, and it's very weird that Trump did not stop in Israel. Okay, even just for a day or two. It's literally right there. Okay, he was in the Middle East for a whole week. Okay. And Iran will unveil an anti-ballistic missile defense system in the coming weeks. The defense system will destroy ballistic missiles in the Earth's atmosphere, similar to the American THAAD system. And we're hearing that at least 27 people have been killed in a tornado outbreak in southeastern Kentucky over the weekend. And some of you guys may know who Duramax News is. He lives not far from the epicenter, I guess you could say, of this tornado outbreak near London, Kentucky. And apparently it was an EF4 tornado that was down on the ground for a long distance. I think it was like on the ground for 20 or 30 miles, and it just destroyed everything. And some of the people in his family actually lost their home. So you can go to Duramax News and see if he needs any help. But I spoke to him, and everyone is okay. His family's okay, and everything's good with him. So that's the most important thing, is that everybody's safe. And a Mexican sailboat with the Mexican Navy on a tour of goodwill hit the Brooklyn Bridge by accident last night, killing 2 crew members and injuring 34 people. Basically, the sails were too tall and they hit the bridge, and the sails broke and collapsed and fell on top of the crew. And then last night we had this open skies plane deployed from Moscow to southern Russia here near the Caucasus Mountains. They typically do this right before they launch missiles at Ukraine so they can track the missile telemetry. And we had a large number of U.S. military cargo planes go to Saudi Arabia. They went to Riyadh, so that could be shipment of weapons from this recent weapons deal that Saudi Arabia signed with the U.S. But that's it for now, guys. I will be monitoring this RS-24 YARS test tonight. Also, the India-Pakistan ceasefire expired today, so that could flare up again. Okay, but I'm very concerned about this RS-24 YARS launch, and it could potentially be a strike on Ukraine. So until later on, take care. God bless. Hope you have a great Sunday. Remember, it's the Lord's Day. And don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere. And this update was sponsored by EMP Shield. Guys, EMP Shield has created a special discount just for you, the listeners of the NYPrepper channel. If you go to empshield.com and use the promo code NYPrepper, you can get 15% off your entire order. And why do you need an EMP Shield? Well, this is a special device to protect your vehicle, your RV, your solar generators, your radios from an electromagnetic pulse, which could be caused by a solar flare or potentially a rogue country like North Korea detonating an electromagnetic pulse weapon over the United States that's mounted onto a satellite. So protect your vehicles, protect your RV, protect your radios, protect your generators with an EMP shield. Use my promo code NYPrepper to get 15% off. Installation is super simple. This is a veteran-owned business, 100% American-made, and the EMP shields have been tested by the military, okay? And free shipping is included to the entire continental United States. And the link and the promo code are in the description below this video.